with BlueSky Hypnosis and Friday Live at 5. Welcome. Welcome to you if you've been here before, and welcome to you if it's your first time. Glad to have you. Today we're going to be talking about I love myself first and then I lose weight. So hopefully the title is intriguing enough, it piqued your interest enough to want to learn more. I suppose it did if you're here. And I want to just give a few disclaimers before we start. Number one, I am not a licensed psychologist. I am not a medical doctor. If you have any important physical, medical issues, make sure you talk to your doctor. Important psychological issues, make sure you talk to your psychologist. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. Everything that I'm talking about is coming from 15 years of experience working one-on-one with clients on a variety of different issues. Weight loss is actually one of the most significant issues that I work on in my practice. It's one of the issues, it's probably the number one issue on my YouTube channel, which is BlueSky Hypnosis, where I have a lot of free content on a lot of topics, and weight loss is probably the number one topic that the content comprises. If you have questions, please feel free to ask those questions today. It's what makes this way more interesting for me, certainly, is the interaction between you guys and the questions you ask and you know what I'm talking about. It can easily and always takes the conversation in different twists and turns. That makes it way more interesting. If you have comments or your own experiences, please feel free to put those in the comment section as well. Also, if you have suggestions about future Live at 5s or particular topics that you would like to see included or added onto in the content section of the BlueSky Hypnosis YouTube channel, please be sure to let me know about that too. I guess where I want to start today is on the main drivers of weight gain. You know, what causes people to gain weight? And I guess what I would first say is that for years, you know, I've been doing this work for 15 years, and for about the first 5 years, I did not work with weight loss clients because I was not comfortable with the sort of intellectual blocking and tackling. How is this actually going to work? Because I think that I was really coming from that place of kind of conventional thinking, which is calories in, calories out. You know, if you have a calorie deficit, in other words, you take in fewer calories than you burn, you will lose weight. And I'm not saying that that's not true. It's absolutely true. But as I've said before, I kind of see that the calories in being one leg of a three-legged stool, the calories out being the second leg, and that's pretty much where most conventional weight loss programs begin and end. You know, they put you on a special diet, they restrict your calories, maybe they talk about the different kinds of food that you eat, and then they have you exercising a certain amount, and they want you burning more than you take in, hence you lose weight. Does that work? Yeah, it does work. But does it work in the long run? For some people, I suppose it does. But I would say for the vast majority of people, that approach often fails. Probably more often fails than it succeeds. And why? Because in my conception, there's a third leg to the stool. And a two-legged stool falls over. The third leg to the stool is the psychology, the mind, and its influences on the emotions. So I say that's the piece that's been missing. I say that the mind and the body are connected. I say that the mind ultimately is more powerful as connected to the emotions than a diet plan, than an exercise plan. And that's often why they ultimately fail. So just take into consideration for a moment the very common phrase, emotional eating. Obviously, it implies something that is outside of the very strict concept of I'm going to go to the gym to burn a certain number of calories. I'm going to only eat these kinds of foods, and I'm only going to eat them in these quantities. Emotional eating essentially overrides that and then ultimately undermines what's going on in terms of this sort of rational plan that I'm going to follow to have a calorie restricted diet. It's almost like a torpedo going into the hull of a ship, Big hole, water pours in, ship sinks to the bottom. So in order to get control over especially long-term weight loss, it seems to me that one has to get control over the emotional eating. Why would someone emotionally eat? Well, they're under stress. Things are going on in their life. And the food is serving as almost the way drugs or alcohol tend to distract the person that's addicted to those things. You know, there are plenty of people who come home after a long day at work and they just dive right into the glasses of wine. And after 2 glasses of wine, 3 glasses of wine or more, they suddenly feel like they can relax. So the wine is behaving almost like a drug. And then it turns into a habit, and then they start doing this all the time. Well, people are doing the same thing with ice cream and with cookies and with brownies and with potato chips and with pretzels and with popcorn and with a myriad of different kinds of foods, because I think while the person is engaging in that activity, they feel better than before they started. Now, after they're done, they can have a period of recrimination and they can be angry at themselves and so forth. But I think for the period while they're engaging in that behavior, they are sort of soothing themselves, emotionally eating. So doesn't it make sense then that indeed that third leg of the stool is getting control over the psychological and emotional parts of us that are driving the behavior in the first place? I think so. and I feel like it's worked really well for a lot of the clients that I work with. I would also say that from a scientific standpoint, you have 2 modes of your autonomic nervous system. Autonomic just means automatic, the things about your body that are happening automatically that are controlled by your subconscious mind. So you're not consciously regulating your pulse. You're not consciously regulating your immune system or your reproductive system or your endocrine system or your digestive system. All of these things are happening behind the scenes without conscious input. And the autonomic nervous system has 2 modes. If you're not in one, you're in the other. So one mode is rest and digest. That's where we really want to be. But in modern times, few people are generally there. And if they're there, they're not there for very long. And then the other one is the one that everybody's familiar with. It's called fight or flight. These are the 2 modes of the autonomic nervous system. If you're not in one, you're in the other. And when you're in the fight or flight response, all kinds of crazy things happen in your body. It's almost like you're in a fort and the fort's being attacked. And while the fort is being attacked, if the attack is significant enough, all of the basic functions of the fort cease. So you don't necessarily need to have all these people that are baking bread and cleaning dishes and typing up reports and making sure that the plumbing system is working and all of the other things that you would need for like a little city. All those people are going to need to go up on the ramparts and fight off the attackers, because if the attack is successful, all those ancillary functions are worthless anyway. And that's kind of what our bodies do when we move into the fight or flight response. So all of those major systems I mentioned before, your endocrine system, your reproductive system, your digestive system, your immune system, all of these systems are diminished in their capability because that energy required to fund 100% functionality of, say, your digestive system now is going over into your muscles so that you can fight or run away. Because like the fort, if you're being attacked by a tiger, it doesn't really matter in that moment if your endocrine system is operating properly or at 100%, or your digestive, reproductive, immune system. It doesn't really matter. Where the problem obviously comes in is when you hold that stress response, which it seems like almost everyone is doing, for extended periods of time. Then the body starts to break down. It doesn't work as efficiently. And remember, the digestive system is one of those systems. The other thing that happens when you become stressed is your body dumps adrenaline and cortisol into your bloodstream. And you know this when you are totally stressed because you can feel your heart start to beat more rapidly. You can feel your muscles clench. You feel like you have energy, maybe even nervous energy. This is designed so that you can fight the tiger or you can run away. But if you're looking at a bill, or if you're having a problem with your child, or if you're caring for your elderly mother, or if you have a problem at work, or if you're in traffic, none of these physiological systems are actually working in your favor. They're working against you. But this is the way we're wired. Now, also, the role of cortisol, one of those hormones that's dumped into your bloodstream, the role of cortisol is to tell your body to hold on to all available fat, particularly in the belly area. Now, if you think about this from a biological standpoint, this makes perfect sense, because when our ancestors would have been stressed, it would have been things like the main breadwinner just died, the crops failed, the village was attacked, there was a famine, there was a fire, and all the grain burned. In other words, for most of history, if our ancestors were stressed, it's very likely that their access to food would have been restricted. And so it makes perfect sense that our psychobiological system would have come up with a way to tell the system, hold on to all available fat. Don't burn it. Don't let it go, because you may need that fat to get through the next 4, 5, 6 months of a lean winter. Whenever cortisol is dumped into your bloodstream due to stress, it's exacerbating the underlying problem with weight. And so, again, I go back to that image because I like to simplify things as much as possible for myself, of the stool, the 3-legged stool. It needs all 3 legs in order to stand up properly. And my assertion is that the 3rd leg, which has to do with your psycho-emotional state, is almost totally ignored. And when it's not ignored, you're not being equipped with how to bring that system back from the sympathetic mode of the autonomic nervous system. It's a fancy way of saying fight or flight, to the rest and digest. And it's not like you have to be Zen all the time. You just can't be in fight or flight 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for years on end, and expect that that's not going to cause problems. All right. I also want to say a couple more things with this heading of the main drivers of weight gain. Is I want to mention sleep. So we often think of stress, what puts you into that autonomic nervous system mode of fight or flight, sympathetic mode, as being something like, oh, I'm so angry, I'm in traffic, or I'm really scared that this bad thing is going to happen, or my girlfriend just dumped me, or I got so upset with my child, or my boss yelled at me. But stress on the body actually goes beyond that. So if you're dehydrated, for example, your body goes, oh, Karen has lost her access to water. Let's put her in a fight or flight response so she can, break out of the prison she must be in, so that she can go find adequate water supplies. So just being dehydrated can put you into a stress response. Watching a scary movie, or for that matter, watching the 11 o'clock news, will put you into a stress response, because your conscious mind knows, 2-dimensional image, it's a murder that happened in the city, which is 30 miles away or 3,000 miles away, but your subconscious mind doesn't know that. And it treats what's portrayed on the screen as though it's an imminent threat to you. And that's why movies, like action movies and thriller movies and horror movies, are advertised as a seat of your pants thrill ride, because while you're sitting there in the seat, 2-dimensional image, your body experiences elevated heartbeat, blood pressure goes up, your immune system is diminished. You start gripping the armrests of your chair more and more tightly. You may start perspiring because your subconscious mind believes that you're under threat. This is putting you into a stress response. So the other thing, apart from being dehydrated, would be diminished sleep. If you're not sleeping adequately, your body isn't getting what it needs to sort of restore, rebuild, rehabilitate itself. It's not getting enough. It's being shortchanged. And so that can put you into a stress response. And here's another one that, it took me a while to figure this one out. But for those of you who are coffee drinkers, people drink coffee, I guess because they like the taste of it. That's one thing. I mean, when I used to drink it like, I don't know, 30 years ago, I did it because I put a lot of cream or milk in it and sugar. And once I did that, it didn't really taste like coffee anymore. And it actually, to me, tasted really good. It was kind of like a milkshake. But, you know, it's traditional in our country to drink coffee in the morning because it's kind of a jump start for people, right? They drink the coffee and suddenly their mind feels like it might be clearing a little bit. They suddenly feel like they have energy and they've got the energy to start the day and to take on these projects and so forth. Well, why is that? Why does drinking coffee give people energy? The answer is that coffee is actually viewed by the body or sensed by the body as being toxic, as being poisonous. And it stimulates the adrenal glands to produce adrenaline by putting the person into a stress response. And remember, a stress response is going to release cortisol into your bloodstream, and cortisol is going to tell your body, hold on to all available fat. And over time, you generally, like any drug, need more and more and more of it to achieve the same results. And again, I'm not a doctor. Please take everything I say with a grain of salt. But over time, you can actually burn out your adrenal glands. And I would say, based on the role of cortisol, that you are actually working at cross purposes with yourself by drinking the coffee. You know, my other understanding about coffee is that it can cut the blood flow to your brain by up to 52, 53%, depending on the study that you're looking at. Cutting the blood flow to your brain may have nothing to do with weight gain, but I just thought I would toss it in there. A fun fact indeed. And then the other thing is poison. So other forms of poison. If you put poison on your skin, right? So there are things in medicine called transdermal patches. We all know this, that you can put a patch on your arm and that patch will deliver some kind of chemical, drug, whatever, into your bloodstream. You don't have to put it in your mouth. You can just put it on your arm. What this means is that anything you put on your skin, your hair, your nails, your face, your scalp, anything, personal care products, you might want to read what's in the label. And if you can't pronounce what's on that label, you might want to think about it, because here's how it's related to fat and weight gain. That if your body cannot process, detoxify from whatever poison it's taking in, and we're all taking in poison in a variety of different ways, if it can't process that, it can create fat cells and put the poison, sequester it inside a fat cell. So we could then look at our body and go, oh, blah, 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 so fat, the body looks terrible. But the body is actually doing everything it can in order to sustain your life, to keep you going, including sequestering poison inside of fat cells. So with that long ramble, I want to see who's here, what questions we have, and get this thing interactive. So thanks for sticking with me on that one. Here is Sarah C. And she says, hello, I just started listening to the Love Yourself for Weight Loss 8-hour one, and I've been eating a lot more the next days. Would I be better off listening to Safe to Lose Weight first? Sarah. Okay, so this is a really, really cool one to jump into. So if you're having negative results in the face of positive programming, so everything on that track, and you're probably listening to the subliminal one, but everything on that track is going to be things about loving yourself, rewarding yourself with clean, pure water, with healthy food in reasonable portions, maybe 2/3 of what you used to eat, and so forth. It's like you're having a counter reaction, if you will. What this suggests to me, and will lead this conversation in a fruitful way that I might not have touched on otherwise, is that the role of your subconscious mind is to protect you and keep you safe. So one of the drivers of weight gain, especially for women, sometimes for men, but especially for women, is the subconscious mind believing that the weight is actually providing a kind of suit of armor against assault from the world. So if the subconscious mind believes that if you become thin, if your body becomes, lean and thin and healthy in that way, and it loses, say, I don't know, whatever the number is, 50 pounds, that you will be more apt to be attacked, then the subconscious mind will figure out some way to thwart the weight loss. This is where people start talking about things like self-sabotage, which in my opinion is not self-sabotage at all. It's actually self-protection. But it's going in the opposite direction of where the conscious mind wants to go. So if that were the case for you, we would have to figure out, A, is your subconscious mind trying to protect you because it fears that you'll be attacked if you lose the weight? And if that's the case, we would have to convince the subconscious mind that you're safe to lose the weight. So you're right. I think you talked about, would it be better to listen to safe to lose weight? That could be helpful. Would that be enough? Not really sure. Not really sure, but it's worth trying. Let's see. The other thing is your subconscious mind may not believe or accept that you are worthy of love. That's another possibility. That you might have a belief in your mind based on something that happened in the past, a trauma, either this life or a past life, that says, well, you're not worthy of this. You're not worthy of a good relationship. You're not worthy of a lean, healthy body. You're not worthy of whatever. That's another thing that could happen where it's being undermined. The more the programming comes in that says, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself, this other part of you might be like, no, you don't, no, you don't, no, you don't. And now you have this battle that's going on. And again, we'd have to resolve that part of you that's holding on to the limiting belief. One of the things that you could do is you could use the pendulum, a pendulum. I have a video on my channel, BlueSky Hypnosis, on YouTube. And where's that? Subscribe. If you guys haven't subscribed, please consider doing that. Watch that video. Teaches you how to use the pendulum, and you can ask. You can actually ask the pendulum once you calibrate it, and the video teaches you how to do that. Is part of my mind trying to protect me by holding on to weight? If you get a yes to that, then it would be, okay, is it because of something that happened to me earlier in my present life? If you get a yes to that, then you'd want to say, did it happen before I was 30 years old? Did it happen before I was 20 years old? Did it happen before I was 10 years old? And if you get an age range, then you might want to say, was it something like that involved violence? Was it something that involved anything that was due to some kind of physical contact? Is it something that somebody said to me? And keep following it down until you figure out exactly what it is. Once you know what you're dealing with, you'll know much better how to resolve that. But this is a really good point that you made, and I'm so glad you made it. If you have any follow-ups, I'll be looking for you, Sarah C. And welcome if it's your first time here, to try to answer any follow-ups that you may have. So again, thanks for asking, and good luck to you. All righty. There's Waffle Queen and Estelle and Rosa. Here is Rosa saying, good evening, everyone. I would like to know why I self-sabotage to lose weight. So probably in some of the answer that I was giving to Sarah, you now understand what are some of the reasons why your subconscious mind, and I'm going to call it self-protection, why your subconscious mind is engaging in the behavior that's going in the direction that you don't want it to go in. So it could be something as simple or straightforward as you're under a lot of stress. So if we were working together, one of the questions on my intake form is, what's your stress level? 0, no stress, 10 is off the charts. Where is it? If you told me it was 7, 8, 9, 10, I'd be like, okay, we have to get that under control because that's what leads to emotional eating. Right? It's a way of self-soothing. It's a way of self-medicating. And unless and until we got control of that and the role that cortisol is playing in your body, we'd be fighting an uphill battle. Could it be what I was talking about with Sarah. Could there be a perception in your subconscious mind that in order for you to be safe, you need this extra weight? Absolutely. Could it be that back to the subconscious mind, that in order to fit in with your family, in order to fit in with your peer group, do you need to be a little bit heavier because they are? I don't know if they are or they aren't. I'm just making this up. Absolutely. That's another possibility. So we have to get to the root. We have to get to the bottom of what the subconscious driver is that would be pushing you in that direction, which is the opposite of what you consciously want, right? And that reason is probably protective in nature. And it could be as esoteric as you starved in a past lifetime. And the subconscious mind says, that's not happening again. I've worked with people and that's been the case. It could be something as esoteric as you have a spiritual entity that is attached to you, and the spiritual entity starved in their lifetime, and they don't want that to happen again. Or they were obese in their lifetime, and that's the only place that they feel comfortable. Or they had a food addiction for a variety of reasons, and that is influencing you. All of these things I've seen over the past, call it 10 years, even though I've been practicing for 15, because as I said, in the first 5, I kind of stayed away from the weight loss piece because I didn't feel like I had it figured out in a way that made sense to me, coming in through the mind and the emotions. All righty, thanks, Rosa. There's Stephanie. Hello, Stephanie. Good to see you from France, I believe. Here is Arcola Johnson. I eat 1 meal a day and I still can't lose the weight. All right, so this is where, if you haven't already, you definitely want to check with your doctor. Find out if something's going on with your endocrine system. You know, is it a thyroid thing? You know, make sure you get kind of medically checked out about that. You definitely want to rule that out. Then you'd want to figure out, because I have no idea, what are you eating? Are you eating McDonald's for the 1 meal? Are you having junk food? Are you eating really healthy food? If the medical piece checks out, if you're eating healthy food for your 1 meal, and assuming that you're moving your body, or at least going for walks or whatever that is, then I guess you'd have to look at, okay, is there a reason your subconscious mind wants to hold on to this weight? You know, what I often see, and what most people are familiar with, is that somebody goes on a weight loss thing and then they lose a certain amount of weight and then they plateau, they hit a plateau. And I always feel like that plateau is some kind of baseline that the subconscious mind has, which it's like, okay, I'll let you lose 10 pounds, but I'm not going to let you lose 20 because then you'll be unsafe. So, you know, I would suggest you want to check out all those other things first medically. Make sure you're eating the right kind of food, you're moving your body to a degree. And if all of that, there's still no answers, then I would start looking for, okay, what reason does your subconscious mind have to hold on to that weight? You know, is it any of those esoteric things I mentioned? Is it any of the things that are related to trauma? That's what I would want to know. All right, good luck to you. Here is Stephanie. Stephanie says, I've been doing your self-esteem and weight loss hypnosis for over 2 weeks now. I see considerable change in how I value myself. However, when it comes to the weight loss part, there is a bug. Okay, so a bug is, yeah, it's kind of a good way of describing the subconscious mind saying it doesn't want that to happen. If you can, oh, wait a minute, there's more here that Stephanie put. She says, I know for a fact that your weight loss hypnosis works wonders. There's something on my side and I cannot put my finger on why I still want to mindlessly munch on a little snack here and there. And then it keeps going, right? I have plentiful amounts of fresh fruit and vegetables for which I'm deeply grateful. The universe is always supplying. I have the best intentions at night when I go through the day. I go back to it. Okay, so I would say the same thing to you, Stephanie, that we have to figure out what that subconscious driver is. Because you mentioned like the compulsive eating, the munching on things. This could be boredom, right? If you're bored, food often is sort of a temporary antidote to boredom. It could be that you're fearful or worried about anything, about bills, about your job, about your relationships, about your health, about the future of the world. It could be the media that you're taking in. You know, if you're just taking in doom and gloom media, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, that could be driving this as well. So, gotta figure out what that is. We gotta figure out what that is. Would want to know what your stress level is, 0 to 10. I'm pretty sure it's not 0. You know, is it closer to a 2 or a 4, or is it more like an 8, a 9, or a 10? If it's up in that high range, 7 and up, we'd want to find a way to bring that number down. And as that number comes down, your behavior will probably change. Are there any traumas in your present life that could be related to a subconscious need to have a protective barrier around you? All right, hopefully that makes sense. And thank you for asking the questions and posting what you did. Here is Carmen. Hello, Carmen. Been emotionally eating and told putting myself first is selfish since I was little. Food has been my comfort, and after I realized I married a narcissist, my safe space. Okay, so I mentioned the term before, a limiting belief. So belief is usually installed at a moment in time, generally through trauma. That's my experience with that. And if a caregiver, for example, is telling you that it's selfish to put yourself first, that can harden into a limiting belief. Now, a belief is, the definition that I like, is an emotionalized idea held at the subconscious level. So if you have an idea, right, the world is flat, the world is round, the world is a triangle, and you have an emotion, and you marry these two together, that is now a belief. And the belief, the underlying idea that comprises the belief, does not have to be true. It does not have to be false to have the same power. And you know it's activated when you feel yourself, your emotions activating based on this idea. Somebody walks up to you and says, hey, you know what? World is flat. And you find yourself getting upset because you believe that the world is round, or the other way around. You know that a belief has been activated. And we have God knows how many beliefs. And the belief, because it sounds like that's what it is, because that's what you were taught, the belief that it's selfish to put yourself first sounds like a limiting belief that is holding you back in a variety of ways. It sounds like your relationship, the way you describe it, is a source of stress for you. And one of the things about stress that I think it's important to point out is that as humans, we can't avoid stress. You can't avoid all stress. It's around us. We're swimming inside of things being said, and we see things, and we hear things, and we feel things that cause stress. And in general, the system is designed to protect us. As I said, if your life is suddenly threatened by a mugger in an alley, you want that system to kick in. But there are ways that you can sort of counteract this. So number one is the thing that everybody talks about, or should be talking about, I guess, and that is reduce your consumption of optional stress-inducing media, for example, like the news. Why watch the news? Why listen to the news when you can simply read it? And maybe you read it not necessarily before you go to bed, but you read it at a different time of day. And maybe instead of reading it for 6 hours, you read it for 20 minutes. The visual news, where they show something blowing up or people crying and screaming, is going to affect you viscerally, far more powerfully than reading about it. And we don't want you affected tremendously by things like the news or by things like optional television programming that's going to put you into a stress response. Then the other thing is we want to make sure you're getting enough sleep. The other thing is we want to make sure that at some point during the day, you can bring your autonomic nervous system to the rest and digest, the parasympathetic mode of the autonomic nervous system, so that everything in your body can calm down, even if it's only for 20 minutes. And remember that dictum from physics that a body in motion tends to stay in motion. So if you put yourself into a rest and digest mode, right? You've meditated, you've been walking in the garden, you've been journaling, you've been reading poetry or something like that, then that dictum is working on your behalf. A body in motion tends to stay in motion. That the law of inertia is kind of working for you. Can you get knocked out of that? Absolutely. But the more you do this, keep bringing yourself back to this place, even if it's once a day, the cumulative effect will begin to show benefits for you. In fact, Harvard Medical School talked about this. They called the parasympathetic mode of the autonomic nervous system, the rest and digest, they called that the relaxation response. And they asserted in their studies that with as little as 12 minutes a day, you could have all of these phenomenal changes to your brain, like the gray matter in your brain associated with memory actually begins to expand. That pain and aches in your body diminishes. You sleep better and deeper. Your blood pressure normalizes, and even your cholesterol levels start to lower. And the big kahuna, get ready for this, is that you change your genetic expression. So your genes are either upregulated or downregulated. I like to think of it as either they're on or they're off. And you have good genes and bad genes. So when you are in this relaxation response for at least 12 minutes a day, according to Harvard, over time, 30 days and longer, you are turning on the good genes. You are turning off the bad genes. In addition to all those other benefits that accrue by moving yourself out of that stress response. So, can you fix your relationship like that? Probably not. Can you bring world peace like that? Definitely not. But you have a choice over what you're feeding your brain through your eyes and your ears. And you have a choice whether you're going to spend this 20 minutes, sweeping the floor or doing some project or watching a TV show or meditating or listening to an audio track. And I would say, given where you are and given that limiting belief, it's probably important for you to begin doing some of these things and tipping the scales in your and towards your benefit. So good luck to you, and thank you for posting that. Let's see here. Here's Patrick Harris saying, "You're so on point. I've been struggling with all of this." So there's a lot of people that are in this boat, especially now. I mean, I'm old enough to remember what life was like in the 1970s, and when I was a kid in a class of 25 children, there might be one child that was overweight, and now I think that's changed dramatically. And when you were out in the street or you went to a baseball game or you were, just walking around a city, you wouldn't see very many heavy people. And now that's changed dramatically. And I'm not trying to say that there aren't other reasons for that, but I do think that it's clear that people are more stressed out now than they were in the 1970s, for a variety of reasons, but they are. And again, I'm not trying to say that's the only reason. I know that there are other factors, but this is a really important factor to get control of. And here's Y Mason kind of saying the same thing. Hello from Columbus, Ohio. I've been an emotional eater my whole life. Every emotional or very emotional. So yeah, we'd have to figure out what your subconscious mind is distracting you from. I'm not good enough. A trauma that happened when you were little, relationship issues, finances, existential fear of death, all sorts of things, that it could be. And again, we'd want to see if we could pinpoint for you exactly what is driving that emotional eating, because that's what we would want to go after, is the root cause. Okay, so Tim Erickson is saying, caffeine doesn't seem to affect me. I can take a 5-hour energy drink and fall asleep 10 minutes later. Okay, it could be that your adrenals are burned out. It could be that when you're sending those chemicals into your body, the adrenals are like, got nothing left, sorry. And adrenal burnout can cause other types of problems as well. And you can let me know if you want down there if that's the case. But if it's still stimulating the release of cortisol, you could sleep, but the cortisol would be telling your body, hold on to all available fat. So it could be implicated with weight gain and an inability to lose the weight. Thank you for posting that. Andy Davis, no, not my coffee. Here's Rosa says, I compensate for sadness and loneliness by eating snacks, especially chocolate. And then I feel guilty and my self-esteem drops. I feel stuck in a self-toxic circle. Okay, so when I think about this, I think there are 3 main areas of our lives. One is physical and emotional, psychological health. The other one is business and finance, what you do for work in the world and how you're paid for it and everything. And then the third one is relationships. And so what you seem to be talking about here is loneliness. So that would be in kind of the relationship bucket. And I really firmly believe, and it's the crux of today, I love myself first and then I lose weight. Because before I finish that thought, what I want to say is I feel like in our culture, when somebody wants to be loved, they often think, I have to lose weight first. Because if I lose the weight first, then I will look at myself in the mirror and say, oh, I really like what I see, or I really love what I see. If I lose weight first, someone else is going to look at me and say, oh, wow, he's really handsome, or she's really beautiful. And yet, I'm convinced it has to be the other way around. Like with relationships, I think we have to love ourselves first before someone else can love us. And if somebody else really loves us and we don't love ourselves, we probably won't even accept what they're offering, because we won't believe that it's true. And I've often compared this to sales, selling, and how it's said in the world of sales that the first sale you make is always to yourself. If you don't believe in the product or service you're selling, how do you expect someone else to believe in it enough to pay money for it? If you don't believe in yourself, if you don't love yourself, how do you expect someone else to love you? I would go further with this and say that I don't think another person can actually even give you love. In other words, they're not walking up to you and injecting you with dopamine and with oxytocin. They are looking at you in a certain way. They are touching you in a certain way. They are speaking to you in a certain way. They're saying certain words, and maybe they're doing things for you, like bringing you gifts or doing acts of kindness or surprising you or whatever it is. And based upon those behaviors, your mind interprets that as love, and your mind says, because this person loves you, and I know that because they just gave me, a bouquet of flowers, I'm now allowed to release oxytocin and dopamine into my blood system and now feel the feelings of love. But if that's the mechanism, then is it not possible to get to that place without somebody giving you a bouquet of flowers, without someone looking at you and saying, "Oh my God, you're so handsome," or "I love you so much"? Isn't it possible to get there on your own? And isn't that kind of what self-love would be? Where you are able to just close your eyes, for example. There's other ways too. You could be walking on a beach. You know, you could be sitting outside and looking at a sunset. Or you could be closing your eyes and you could just imagine being held by your creator. You could imagine yourself as an adult holding yourself as a baby and saying, "You are a beautiful baby. I'm here to protect you. I cherish you. You're so smart. You're so beautiful. You know, you're so caring and loving." I think that we are a product. I mean, it was said earlier, trying to remember what her name was. But it was said earlier, and I'm sorry I just dropped your name in my mind here, but it was said earlier that she was told that it was selfish. Here it is, Carmen. Carmen was told that she was selfish since she was little. By putting herself first, that was being selfish. That's a belief, right? And I said that a belief is an idea and an emotion that marry together. Belief doesn't have to be true. And it can be a negative belief, something that's a limiting belief, like doing something for yourself is selfish. And then it becomes real. The body treats it as real. Your behavior treats it as real. The things you do and you don't do. Whether you go into a stress response or not, it all becomes real because it becomes part of your programming. Well, you can install new programming that says, "I love myself." That it's right to do things for me. You know, kind of like the oxygen mask in the airplane. If you can't breathe, you can't help anybody else. There's nothing wrong with doing something for yourself. It doesn't mean it's selfish in a pejorative sense. And reprogramming yourself, I think, is part of loving yourself. I think creating the feelings inside of your body simply by closing your eyes and bringing into your mind whatever creates those feelings makes it real for your body. Remember when I said that when you go to the movies and you're watching an action sequence and you feel the physiological effects as if you were in the scene? Remember when I said your subconscious mind does this because it cannot discern that this is a two-dimensional image projected on a screen? You're actually programming your mind when you watch a movie. That's why I have so many videos on my YouTube channel, because it's a way of reprogramming your mind for what you want rather than what just happenstance, haphazard, whatever, or came in through trauma. So we can all do this. It just happens to take an understanding of how you do it and discipline. You know, overwrite what's in there. And if that's not working, then what you have to do is you have to go at what created the limiting belief, what created the low self-esteem in the first place. That's what I do when I work with my clients, is I help them find and reverse the cause of the limiting belief, right? So if you've got a blackboard and you've got written on the blackboard, stupid, the reversing the old trauma that created that programming in the mind, it's like erasing that word. And once you erase the word and the blackboard, the chalkboard is clean. Now you can write a new word on there, which is I'm brilliant. And I'm obviously oversimplifying this, but I think you get the idea. So hopefully that long, it sounded like I was giving a dissertation. Sorry for that. I hope that helps. All right. Thanks, Rosa. JW Fat, welcome to you. Good to see you. Glad you're here. Hey, Brent Minette, I've come to see you again. Good to see you, Brent. Very good to see you. Hope you're well. Here is Oriti Claire. Can psychological trauma also have a lasting effect on weight? Absolutely. I don't know if you heard me say at the outset of the broadcast, but one of the drivers of weight gain and holding on to the weight could be, for example, and I feel like I see it more in women than in men, a subconscious desire to be safe. So if a woman was attacked, like if there were some kind of a sexual attack, and her mind created a belief that if she's heavy, that either that will be interpreted as unattractive and therefore she'll be safe, and or she has a barrier between her and that kind of assault. That could be an example of how trauma could prevent a person from losing weight. And as I also said, it could be something as esoteric as a person starved in a past lifetime, and the subconscious mind is saying, we're not letting that happen again. And so as the person gets to a certain weight, they start losing weight, alarm bells go off in the subconscious mind. They say, we'll do whatever we have to do, binge eating or start drinking alcohol or whatever it is to reverse that. So absolutely. And that's something that at least when I'm working one-on-one with people, I do feel like is really important to resolve. Can you totally overwrite something? There are many cases where people can absolutely do that, but it might take more time and more repetitions in order to do that. So great question. Okay. Yes, JW, you're right. I was just thinking about you the other day because I found the original file. I couldn't find it for a while. The stop the sugar addiction. Found it. I know you want the rain, and I haven't forgotten it. I promise. And I'm sorry I haven't gotten it back out sooner because you have definitely been on my mind. But thank you for reminding me. Oh, here's Patrick Harris coming back around and saying, I think cortisol and adrenal fatigue are massive with myself. So yeah, that is something that you'd want to check out with a doctor. You may also want to look into naturopathic doctors. They have ways of kind of balancing out this in a natural way. So, but somebody who's kind of a licensed doctor, medical professional would probably be your first stop. At the same time, it doesn't hurt to do tracks, for example, on my channel that bring you into that parasympathetic nervous system where your body isn't dumping or trying to dump adrenaline and cortisol into your bloodstream, where you can be kind of zenned out for a period of time. Remember, an object in motion tends to stay in motion. So good luck with all of that. That's a problem that I think is pretty widespread, actually. There's Marie Hogan. Hello, Marie. Good to see you. And I really wish, Andy, I wish we could just call you from now on Not My Coffee. I love that. That's just awesome. Just scrolling down here. Here is Carmen. Carmen follows up by saying that self-protection mode and self-sabotage would explain why I gained weight like a mad woman after getting to my low weight since I got married. Overweight then as well. All right, so you could start with the tracks on my channel that say I am safe to lose weight, because that programming would go directly into that self-protection mechanism. If that's not enough, then we would need to resolve the trauma that is underlying that part of the mind where an incident occurred, told you I'm not safe because of that incident, and we need to neutralize that incident. Okay? So thanks for that follow-up there. Oh, here is Ollie J. Isn't it better to convince the subconscious mind or even the conscious mind that I'm more likely to be able to defend myself in an actual assault when I'm fit and lean? Possibly. That's an interesting way of coming at it. If that's what you thought the issue was, could you do that? Possibly. It wouldn't deal with the perception of attractiveness. So if the subconscious mind believed that you were more attractive if you were fit and lean, and if you were more attractive, you were more subjected to being attacked, that might undermine that strategy. Even if, and I don't know if you're a male or female, but the average female is physically smaller than the average male. And if a fit woman was perceived as being attractive, and therefore it's all subconscious mind. Subconscious mind says that makes you more vulnerable. You're going to be noticed. Then right away that could undermine things. The way to do this is that you find the incident that lives in the subconscious mind that created this mechanism in the first place, and you heal it where it lives, and then the person can feel safe to go out in the world subconsciously. Because it's probably not a conscious thing at all. Consciously, the person might say, no, that happened 20 years ago. It was terrible, but I don't really think about that much anymore, and I just kind of go on my way. Or it only bothers me if I really think about it a lot. But subconsciously, it's still present. So yeah, really, really interesting suggestion. The way I have dealt with this is to resolve the old incident, thus freeing the person to be their best in whatever way that means, and to not have the subconscious mind saying, we have to make sure that there's a perception of unattractiveness, and we have to make sure that you have this barrier around you. Okay, so good, very interesting for conversation for sure. Here's Rosa. Rosa's saying, my stress levels are 12 out of 10. Laugh out loud. Thanks, Peter, for your thorough response. Absolutely. So Rosa, we have got to get control of that. We got to move that down to like a 3 or a 4. Your life will change when you get that stress level to a 3 or a 4. Based on what you've said, and it's not, I don't really know you, but based on what you've said, my inclination would be to do I am worthy of love. Do that track while you're sleeping. I'm worthy of love. And then during the day, do a shorter track on weight loss, especially if you tend to binge like a lot of people do at a certain time of the day. So it might be like early evening. That tends to be when a lot of people binge. Let's say that it's after dinner, you're watching TV or something like that, like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Then do the 20-minute dual track weight loss 30 minutes or an hour before you would normally binge. In other words, interrupt the pattern, and interrupt the pattern with programming that is built around weight loss. And then do the reinforcement of potentially up to an 8-hour period while you're sleeping of I am worthy of love. That's, if I were just going to say, here, only do it with recordings, that's what I would suggest. So hopefully that helps you. We're getting near the end. All right, so I want to take a couple more questions. Before I do, I want to talk about what's coming up. Let's get rid of this. Where are we next? Here we go. So we've done several on this channel spiritual film analyses. We've done Somewhere in Time, and we did It's a Wonderful Life, and I forget what the other one we did was, but the next one, the next episode of Friday Live at 5 is going to be the Kevin Costner film. I think it was from the 1990s, called The Field of Dreams. And this is one of my all-time favorites. I have a special place in my heart for this one because my dad was in professional baseball for over 40 years. And I grew up around professional baseball. And, I think a lot of boys and men have this thing with their fathers. And that's a lot of what this film is about. And there are certainly myriad spiritual aspects to this film. So we're going to be talking about this film, but we're not going to be talking about it next Friday. Next Friday, I'm going to take a break. I've got some family business to attend to next week. So this spiritual film analysis is going to be 2 weeks from today. I believe that's July 30th. I'll be sending out notification. Hope you're on the email list. If you're not, then you can get on the email list just by going to the video description of today or any other live. I'll send out a heads up. 2 weeks from today, spiritual film analysis, Field of Dreams. Hope you'll join for that. I'm pretty excited about that because I love this film. Absolutely love it, and looking forward to really diving deep in it and hearing what you guys have to say. All right, let's take a couple more. Scrolling down here. Here is Marie Hogan. She is saying, Peter, I find the World Peace and Personal Freedom track the most helpful for me. Of all the tracks, and I use several of them regularly, this one is the only one that I sleep all the way through. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, it is my contention that humanity is moving, maybe 2 steps forward and 1 step backwards, but is moving inexorably towards true independence, true freedom and autonomy, and a true place of loving ourselves. And that by loving ourselves, we can then love others. And I think that's how real peace is going to come. I don't think peace ever comes through violence. And that this track is really dedicated to that. It's dedicated to kind of what Gandhi said, like, be the change you want to see in the world. Find that place of personal freedom inside of yourself if you want all peoples to be free. Find that place of peace inside yourself if you want there to be peace in the world. And that's honestly why I made this track, and I'm so thrilled to hear that you really like it, that of all the tracks, it's the one that you gravitate towards and you come back to over and over again. And I just kind of wonder what the world would be like if everybody listened to a track like that every single night for like a month. I think it would be amazing. So thank you so much for that update. Really appreciate it. All right. She's also saying, Marie, I think the 8 hours plus of sleep allows me to make healthier choices throughout the day. Absolutely. Absolutely. And scientifically, sleep deprivation is closely correlated with weight gain. In fact, one of the things that I read that made the most sense to me was that when you don't sleep enough, you don't have enough energy. And the body is like looking for energy. And so it does stuff like the 5-hour energy drink, and it does stuff like coffee, and it does stuff like a donut because it gives you quick energy, or a candy bar. So the more you can have this holistic approach and give your body everything it needs, the less it's going to be screaming out loud, like a dog. If you don't feed your dog, he's going to let you know in increasingly more frantic ways. And it is believed, at least in the scientific reports I've read, that if you don't sleep adequate amounts, closely correlated with weight gain. And part of that is because your body is looking for the energy that you deprived it of by only giving it 4 hours of sleep instead of 8 hours, 6 hours instead of 8 hours, and so forth. Okay, cool. Here's Rosie. Rosie Petal says, hi, Peter. I start to feel sad when I listen to your subliminal for weight loss, but it has helped me with self-control while I'm eating. Okay, so I would love to know which subliminal that is. I've got quite a few. And I'd love to know where that sadness is coming from. My instinct, and I have no idea if this is right, but my instinct is that it's probably something about self-love, because I do put things about self-love on all the weight loss tracks, because I feel like it's absolutely intimately related to successfully being able to lose weight and keep the weight off. And it may be something like the sadness may come from feeling like you're not really loved. And again, I have no idea if that is correct or not. That's just a kind of instinct, probably based on experience with other people. But it would be good to be able to figure out where that sadness is coming from and repair it, so that you're not carrying that heaviness around with you. That's one of the other concepts, is that The subconscious mind is literal. And people talk about, they describe emotions as being physical in nature, like a broken heart or a heavy heart. And I think a heavy heart leads to a heavy body. And so if we can help the person have a light heart, I believe that that leads to having a light body. So thank you for sharing that. And I hope you're able to figure out what's creating that sadness and surmount that. That would be awesome. But in the meantime, I'm really glad that things are working for you, at least insofar as what you described. Okay. Here's Catherine. Catherine, welcome. I haven't seen your name before, but I'm glad you're here. Saying very insightful info about the subconscious protecting a person from losing weight. Thank you. You're very, very welcome. Stephanie is saying definitely some form of stress about nonfiction media, about the ongoing situation in the world and not feeling safe enough to release that shield. Thank you, Peter. Love from France. Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of people in these times, they've been called unprecedented times, that feel unsafe. And, you know, I guess I would go back to we can't change the circumstances, right, of the world like that, and certainly not alone. But what we can do is kind of regulate to a degree how much of that's coming in. And then, and my guide said this to me, right? They said, because I tend to consume a lot of news and I tend to consume it in written form because I feel like I know that that's not going to affect me as much. But my guide said to me, you need to balance the volume and the time of what you're consuming, albeit written, with its opposite. In other words, time and meditation. And it doesn't necessarily have to be one-to-one, but it needs to be offset. It's almost like if you were working on a car, you're going to get grease all over your body. And you're going to need to take measures when you come into your house that are more than just normal. Working at a desk job, come home, take a shower, you're done, you're clean, boom. But if you've been working on a car all day and you get all this grease all over yourself, it's going to take you longer. You're going to need to spend more time cleaning that dirt and filth and grease and everything else and rust off your body. And it seems to me it's the same thing, that if you're going through a particularly difficult period of your life, based upon what's happening in your personal life, based upon what's happening in the world at large, based upon what's happening at work, if there's more going on there, we all, me too, we all need to spend more time in the opposite state. You know, that state of bliss, that state that tells us that in this moment, everything is fine. In this moment, I'm safe. In this moment, I am feeling loved. I am feeling supported. Because my inner world is a place that I can create a sanctuary, regardless of what's happening outside. You know, kind of like our homes, our physical homes, are supposed to create a sanctuary so that if it's raining outside, you don't get wet when you're in your living room. If it's snowing and windy outside, you don't get cold when you're in your living room, right? We want to do the same thing inside our minds, inside our psyches. So really good point. And, best wishes to you with all of this in France, from the United States. Okay. Yeah, here's Y Mason saying, I really need to limit my news intake. It stresses me out. Absolutely. And Y also says, I find myself constantly eating out of boredom. I don't know how to stop and just be okay with being bored. Help. I'm 240 pounds and have to get this weight off. All right, so you've said two things. You've said the news stresses you out, so we need a news diet. And we don't just need a news diet, take away something, because nature abhors a vacuum. We need to put something in its place. So if we pull the news out, we need to put in something else. And my channel is kind of dedicated to this, to options. You don't have to use the content there, but there are options that you can use. Headphones, press play, and immerse yourself in that. Go for a walk in nature. Do something proactive that fills the void that you created when you pulled the news out. Right? You pull that out, you create a void, plug its opposite in its place. This may also help you with the boredom thing. So, I mean, this is probably too much for this format, but begin thinking about what you love to do, what you would do even if you weren't paid for it, and see if you're able to do more of that, whatever that is, especially when you're finding yourself with nothing. If you love animals, maybe this is the time in your life to go volunteer to work with animals. If you love nature, maybe it's time to take up photography and spend time in nature, creating something, even if you're not paid for it. Because as I did mention before, and as you mentioned, boredom is literally a form of stress. I think we came to this planet bringing gifts with us in order to express those gifts to the world. It could be artistically, it could be mechanically, it could be engineering, it could be business, it could be athletically, it could be with conservation, it could be helping people. There's so many different ways that I think we came here to do these things. And when we're not on that path, I think that creates a certain kind of stress. And boredom is definitely a form of stress. And actively doing something instead is probably the antidote. So, circle back, let us know. Let us know what's happening. And thanks for commenting. Okay. Here is Michelle. Hi, Peter. Michelle here, slightly off the live topic, but wondering if you can give more insight into stress management, which you touched on there. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, and Michelle, I would say that it is right on topic, because I don't know if you heard the part of me talking about the three-legged stool, but you need 3 legs of a stool minimum for the stool to be able to support anybody sitting on it. If it has 1 leg or 2 legs or no legs, it's going to fall over. And the third leg for me is stress and the role of cortisol in the body, emotional eating and so forth. So this is a really complex topic. I won't spend a lot of time on it right now. We'll do another live on this topic specifically, but the first thing I would say is go on a news diet, where you can limit the stress-inducing media from coming in through your eyes and your ears, where you have an option to limit that or eliminate it, then do it. If you have to take in, for whatever reason, the news, take it in through the written form. When you watch it on television, it's manipulated to enhance your emotions. So if I read a passage about someone being attacked and screaming for help, entirely different than if I watch a video of someone being attacked and screaming for help. It's gonna affect me neurologically much more powerfully than if I simply read about that. And it's the same with the music that's played and the intonation of the voice, and then the commercials in between that basically say, do you have these symptoms? Maybe you have this problem. Go talk to your doctor. I mean, it's all kind of like built around fear, because when fear sells, we're wired to respond to fear, to keep us alive. And advertisers and marketers and the people that produce the news and frankly that produce entertainment programming know this. And so it would be the same with entertainment. If the entertainment is creating, if you're watching horror films, if you're watching thrillers, car chases, bank robberies, back off it for a while. So stop taking in the optional stuff that's moving you into a stress response. And as I was saying to Y. Mason, you're going to create a void with that, right? If you're already occupying a certain amount of your life with that stuff, you're going to create a void by stopping it. It's like pulling something out, create a hole, right? You want to put its opposite back into that hole. So anything that induces you to move into a parasympathetic rest and digest response. So if that's reading poetry, read poetry. If it's walking in nature, walk in nature. If it's exercise, if it's listening to some of the tracks that I have on letting go of stress or letting go of grief or loving yourself or sleeping better, you know, all of these things will help you move into its opposite state. Read philosophy. You know, some of the things that have really helped me with this is that everyone is doing the very best they can with the tools they have available to them. Doesn't mean that I don't get upset at people sometimes, but it's easier for me to move through that. Another philosophy that I have is everything is happening for my highest and best interests all the time. That even the things that seem painful or difficult have an underlying purpose for me. So it helps me to not react as strongly, and it helps me to move through it faster. Gratitude. Spending time every day in gratitude, even if it's only 5 minutes or 3 minutes or 1 minute, will help shift you from the sympathetic response to the parasympathetic response. Exercising your body creates more resilience to stresses. Making sure that you're drinking adequate amounts of water, because when you're dehydrated, you're by definition in a stress response. Making sure that you're sleeping adequate amounts of sleep, like 8 hours a night, because if you don't sleep adequately, you are by definition in a stress response. All of these things are really important, right, on a surface level. Below that, it would be dealing with the old traumas in your life that are still controlling you to a degree. We all have it. When somebody says, boy, that situation or that woman really pushes my buttons, they're describing a system that's already built inside of them, and she or that situation is just triggering those deeper systems based on trauma. Well, if you heal that old trauma, it's like you've offloaded a 20-pound sack of grain you've been carrying around with you. And when that button gets pushed in the future, you don't have a response to it. You don't go berserk. You're just like, oh, okay. And you move on with your life. So hopefully, Michelle, my long-winded answer made some sense, and I hope it can help to start make a difference for you. So thanks for asking it. All right, let's take one more. And thank you guys so much for asking these awesome questions. Here is Almond Brown. Love your name, Almond. Love that dog, too. What a cutie. Hi, Peter in chat. Listen every Friday while working, but first time commenting. I'm glad you commented. This is such a great live today, hitting on all the points. Thank you. Absolutely. You are certainly welcome. Oh, and here's Brent. Brent is someone I know from in person. Hi, Peter. I've come to see you again. Much of your teaching is the reason my life has improved as it has. When I do a virtual run, I picture a successful completion throughout the entire race. Way to go. And it's great to see you at least virtually here, Brent. Hope you're doing well. And let's see here. I'm just going to scroll down some more. I'm going to go here to, it's Tim. Tim Erickson is saying, at the start of the crisis, I was 240 pounds. Now I'm almost at 300 pounds. Most of it is sitting in my belly mocking me. All right, so, I mean, one thing you can say about the last 16 months is that there's been a lot of change. There have been a lot of restrictions. There's been a lot of uncertainty. There's been a lot of fear. And all of those things tend to move us fairly predictably into the sympathetic nervous response of the autonomic nervous system, also known as fight or flight, where the adrenaline and the cortisol get dumped, where a person's need to distract themselves from all of this chaos goes up. In other words, the need to emotionally eat goes up. So if this, you're saying this tracks with the crisis. And so the suggestions I made before would be the first place that I would start with you if we were working together, which is we want you to consume, look, it's the language of eating, right? We want you to consume less of the toxic stuff, the stuff that induces you to move into the fight or flight response, and replace that with consuming the stuff that brings you into the rest and digest place. And again, for you, that may be different than it is for me, or that it is for Almond Brown or for Brent Minette. But there are things that you can do that will bring you to that place. And back to the Harvard Medical School study that proved that people who spend at least 12 minutes a day in the relaxation response, you could call that meditation, you could call it self-hypnosis, you could call it deep prayer, you could call it Qigong or Tai Chi, something where you're going into that internal space and you're creating this sanctuary for yourself where you can just be, right? And you can remind yourself that in this moment, I am safe. In this moment, I have everything I need. In this moment, I am grateful for whatever, the birds that are flying outside, the sun that rose this morning, for my daughter, for my house, the roof over my head, the food that I put in my mouth, whatever it is. It'll bring you into that state of parasympathetic mode, autonomic nervous system. It'll create all of those physiological changes if you do it every single day. And for you, I would definitely recommend listening to one of the subliminal tracks for weight loss overnight. I would definitely recommend listening to one of the tracks for weight loss audible during the day. And commit to giving yourself that period of time to go inside. Just like that metaphor I used before about it's raining outside. I don't want to be wet, so what do? Oh, I walk into my house. I sit down in my living room. It's not raining in there. I can see it raining out through the window, but in here, I'm dry. That's what we want you to be able to do with your mind. Okay, hope that helps. Thank you all so much, everyone who commented, everybody who tuned in, the people that are here for the first time, commenting for the first time, the people who've been here all along, the people who've been commenting all along, those of you who didn't comment at all, but you've been here, those of you who are watching this after the live broadcast, I'm really grateful for all of you. It makes this channel, it makes this Friday Live, worth showing up for. And I hope you guys will consider tuning in 2 weeks from today on July 30th for the spiritual film analysis of Field of Dreams starring Kevin Costner. If you haven't seen it, it gives you a chance, if you want, to watch it ahead of time, and we'll be batting the ball back and forth. There's an awesome scene in the movie where Kevin Costner's character is playing catch with his dad. I remember the first time I saw it, it was just like the tears just started to flow. And I think that there's a lot in that film for us to sink our teeth into, to really flesh out a little bit more and to extract more of the meaning from that movie. So hope you'll turn up for that. Hope you guys have an awesome weekend. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, BlueSky Hypnosis on YouTube, I hope you'll consider doing that. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.